So a funny question came around a long time ago, and I think I made a video somewhat about this. But see, I said, okay, let me actually include a broader idea about this, right? Not a brother, but a broader perspective, okay? Because some people asked and would ask, what's the difference in between a fetish and a fantasy? And what's the difference, or how can they be classified around when it comes to illusions? See, I kind of appreciate that humans have this idea called meaning and they use words and syntaxes, but when they make use of that, it's like they kind of forget what the original meaning of things is, and it's like they just make use of it uh, in a certain way that causes even more confusion to them. I always tell people I only need and make use of, or more like I make use of meaning so that I can try to make myself understood. Just because you have meaning and you make use of it, it doesn't mean that you're gonna make yourself understood. Look nowadays that, everyone is like in a race to do something like pulling things out of context so that they can demonize anyone else whom they don't like. If you slightly remind them of things that they don't like, they'll definitely start victimizing and bitching around and pulling everything out of context. So, to put a short definition, a fetish is an obsession. It's always an obsession. A fantasy is something that can tend towards an obsession, but ultimately it is something that if you don't experience, or if you don't put it in, let's say, the physical world, you can keep dreaming about it, but it's not much of a fuss if it doesn't happen. The more you feel a need for it, the more of an obsession something is, right? That's kind of the main difference that I would have, because I would rather not make much use of meaning and not give it too much importance, because ultimately I prefer being rooted in this world and seeing things from a certain perspective beyond the so-called meaning. See, if I am now in a park in nature, I don't need to subconsciously name every object that I'm looking at. I don't need to call trees the way they are called if I look at them. I can just admire them and, well, even admire the life within them. Because a scientist will tell you everything about a tree that is written in a book: type of leaves, height, possible age, all sorts of things about the bark, possible diseases, but they typically kind of, well, miss the life within there. Similarly, a lot of the, superficial people that you have in life are kind of the same, right? When you ask them, or someone asks them about you, they don't know you maybe, and they ask that friend of yours or, superficial person about you, they will tell them everything they know about you, probably height, favorite color, certain things, this and that, kind of, at times they often tell intimate things that you have shared with them, because, well, some people don't do it on purpose. They're just, broad mouthed, as I call them, because they don't want to share secrets, but if they're engaged in discussions, they simply don't have any border or any limitation to what they should speak, and they will just share literally everything and probably realize much later that they have shared what shouldn't be. But again, as I was saying, these people will tell others about you, for example, everything they know, but, you know, it's usually nothing mainly of substance, and at the same time, it's like, well, they're again missing the life within you, right? Because they're not necessarily cherishing you. See, a lot of relationships are what I call a relationship, because they are more or less based on necessity. See, everything in this world is a tool that you make use of in order to make your life, to experience life in a better way. In most situations, people make use of their friends. They don't have friends, they make use of their friends as tools of escapism. They play games together, they walk in restaurants and the such. But nowadays, if you take a look and see, how many people walk in a restaurant or somewhere and they are not glued with their nose in their phones, right? Because even before, telephones became so important that people become more intimate with them than with their own, so-called life partners. Well, the very simple point is they wouldn't socialize much in those times either, right? Nowadays you can see a lot of people much easier because, they're superficial and such. They always live based on responses to their wounds, and that always, pendulates them in between different fantasies and the so-called fetishes, because, well, As I've been saying, miserable people can only perceive one thing, that is sex, as the highest pleasure they can experience. Because miserable people, you won't see them listening to good music too often, so that it cherishes their soul, it cuddles their soul and such. They will just, be more or less carnal. See, now fantasies and fetishes, ultimately they are illusions, because you have a certain fantasy. Well, a fantasy and a fetish, they're meanings, right? Meaning gives you a certain sense of power, because the more meaning you own in your mind, well, the more power you give your mind over you, because now it has more weapons through which it can screw you around. Similarly, you can look at philosophy. Philosophies are all a way through which you can interpret life, right? Look at creations like, for example, religions. The Abrahamic religions serve the same entity, it's just that they call it different names, and they have certain, substantial or less substantial, critical or less critical standpoints which differ in between. But ultimately, they have many similarities, right? I'm not gonna dive into this because I'm not a religious person, and I don't hold religion as dear to me. I do like some philosophies and some wise quotes and the virtues that they portray, though, because ultimately I can't accept the idea that, I need someone else to connect me to divinity. I am part of divinity just like everyone else is. It's just most people prefer playing a game that they are not. So technically, even philosophies, they are illusions, because ultimately they are a piece of meaning. They all want to understand life, to classify life and knowledge and the gain of knowledge and the such, and do certain classifications. But ultimately, it's just meaning, right? All philosophies can be wrong in a way. If you look specifically at woke agendas, they're also philosophies. Is any one of those true? Well, probably there is a grain of truth in some of them, but I will leave it to everyone to figure out on their own, because I can provide you answers, but I won't make you much wiser if you don't realize things. So, people would ask me, like, what are fantasies, how I would use them, or if I have certain fetishes. See, I can talk about this for ages, and people would probably use those as means against me, and I'll prove them that I'm simply immovable. But at the same time, they simply can't comprehend the fact that, I'm a highly complex and different being. Just because I speak about certain things that I would romantically do, they will obviously take them as fetishes. Because, say, for example, if you as a man would, for example, cuddle a girl's legs, it's like you're a leg fetishist automatically, right? People can't comprehend the fact that you can be, romantic enough, and you can do that in a very conscious way, right? You're not obsessed to doing that because you lack attention and you let that lack of attention take the best of you, right? I also have attention issues. I actually have big attention issues, but the very simple point is they don't affect me, right? They are things of the past. They are there just like a scar in a way, because they are very important to me in a way. They are, let's call them markers. Well, I function in a very complex way, so I'm not gonna bother people with the such. But, you can do things from a conscious perspective. Like, you can cuddle a girl's hair in a very soft way, and that's not either a fantasy or at most a fantasy, but it's not a fetish, because a fetish means you want something and you like crave it so much that you want it fast and now, right? It's like your life can't exist without that. Your whole life is a fetish, right? People think that fetishes are only sexual. I am here to remind people that fetishes are not just purely sexual. A fetish means an obsession. Obsession means you want something now, your life means nothing, or your life is in danger without it, and it feels like you're dying. Look, for example, at advertisements. They're selling you products or services, and they are selling you in such an aggressive way. They're giving you the impression that if you don't have those, well, your life would suck. Would my life suck if I don't cuddle my girlfriend's legs, for example? Well, maybe indirectly, because I always seek to make the girl feel good in her own skin. If you make your girl feel good in her skin and you allow her the time to feel things and to experience the emotion that she would require to, feel like a real human being instead of a mess that most of us kind of are anyways, well, you're gonna feel like a sanctuary to her. May she go to other people? Well, that's not for me to choose. Everyone is free to do so. I know I can be a loyalist, and I've always been so. But the very simple point is, I'm not talking about, people leaving me for one thing or another. I invest a lot of time in people, and I simply shred all their defenses and things, because that's how I function. I'm not doing it on purpose though, but insecurities and bitch shields, defenses, and the such, they kind of don't function against me. Now, is it bad, or is it a fetish to do those things? See, as I said, a fetish is an obsession. That is not an obsession for me. If I would declare a girl as my girlfriend, well, a lot of time will pass because I can read people and I always take my time, and well, it's one way through which I can and I do weed people out, because girls who don't have patience, usually that is slightly a red flag, because girls are the ones who are supposed to be testing you as a guy, so they should always have patience. If girls are just about the body count, unfortunately, they're not necessarily keepers. They're probably someone you can have a fling with, but if they're all about the body count, well, you're just gonna be a +1 to the variable of that, right? I've met such beings in my life, and well, fortunately, I learned a lot of things about how they function and the such. These are the kinds of people that you meet and you don't want to meet again, in a way, because they're most likely not gonna change. They're gonna focus on their own things, be it professionally or whatever, and you're gonna end up more or less just like a fling, right? They're not gonna be in a family-like relationship. Even if you get married with those, it's still gonna be something superficial, because one has to read people and has to read their core wounds and certain layers of their let's say core wounds, because through that I can realize how they will function, what their patterns are, and certain other things that I can base myself on. Like, is it, for example, bad to simply ignore a girl's legs? Well, I can speak from like how I function, is that if you, for example, get intimate with a girl but not necessarily having intercourse, the point is very simple. If you ignore her legs, you're technically ignoring half her body, or almost half her body. It's like, do you want half the girl or do you want the whole pack? Like, I'm not interested in her physicality much, because I can read people well, and I've had a lot of people surprised by how I can do it, even from like very early beginnings, right? So it can work. It works differently with each and every person. But this is how I function, this is what I am, this is how I am. And well, that's not gonna change because it's the base me. So all of the meaning is basically illusion in a way, because see, meaning means an inside the box thing. See, it's what I call the sniper scope. You can see something theoretically much clearer, but it makes you oblivious to everything around you, right? If you think a bit in a logical way, in a more complex way, when you look around, just like in a video game, when you look around you in real life, right, you can see 360 degrees around you in a, let's call it a sphere, right? When you put a sniper scope, you only can see at a specific angle, irrespective of where you move the sniper scope. You can see much better something, but you only see in that specific angle. You are oblivious to everything else. That's technically what ignorance is, and that's basically what meaning is. Because when you're taught that, for example, something is a fetish, you're gonna take it as such, more or less. Especially with porn and games and everything pushing these ideas more and more into people's minds, and especially with religion prohibiting all sorts of things, telling you that everything about sex is shameful and guilty. Well, the more you prevent people from thinking about something, well, the more perverted they will become in that way, right? Because you tell people don't think about sex. If they're ignorant, that's what they're gonna think about, right? They're probably even gonna obsess about it. You're gonna tell people don't think about monkeys, sooner or later their minds will be filled with monkeys, right? It's not gonna work on wiser people. It's like, okay, you're gonna tell me don't make use of some piece of meaning. Oh, okay, I'm not making use of it anyway. So it's like, okay, it's like you're telling me to be me. Good. It's like, okay, even if you tell me to make use of some piece of meaning, most likely I'm not going to make use of it. So, but I'm not here to present me in some great light as if I'm some god walking amongst mere mortals, because definitely I'm not. Do I have a greater awareness, and probably am I like a sage because I can see things through a logical perspective? and through a thing that naturally makes sense, well, maybe, but I'm not the only one. I'm not here to present people in a bad light because they don't have my awareness and the such. After all, I know I'm much wiser than my age would tell, and that most people of my age aren't as wise as me. But one of the reasons why I'm actually sharing this, because I know my life is limited, right? Everyone's life is limited. All this knowledge and wisdom that I have, well, the wisdom that I have most likely will help me in future lifetimes, but those future lifetimes haven't started yet, and I need to focus, I will focus specifically on this one, because once this life is over, all business that I have with this physical body and with this life is over as well, right? The meaning that I have acquired and basically the knowledge that I have acquired, it won't serve me in the grave, right? So it would be a shame if I simply don't share it. Other people, share things for money. Well, I'm not good, let's say I'm not good at creating guides and the such, right? I'm not much into creating guides. I mean, I could, but I'm not interested in creating, what they call lessons and tutorials and, courses. Okay, courses, yes, that's the word. Courses and selling them for money. I'm not much into it because I know people don't swarm to such things that I share, and for a while it's gonna be so because people want, the TikToks, they want, the 20 seconds of pleasure that they can get from a funny TikTok. Next year there's gonna be a new application that's gonna be better than TikTok. So honestly, why would I get attached to those, right? This society and its application, it's exactly like a gacha game. There's always something new that will draw your attention and will make you like simp for it. And it's like if you don't have it in your life, you're missing out, right? I can't care about what people say missing out. They're missing out on life. I'm staying here in nature, right? I'm finding here a much greater connection. I don't need a connection of the internet to connect me to people who are far abroad. I mean, sure, I don't mind spending some time with them, but I'm also knowledgeable that I'm not meeting them in real life in the sense that not staying close to them. Because even if you talk on the internet, a lot of people will tell you in a silly way, in a very primitive minded way, that you're not, talking to them in real life. It's like, are you dumb? Are you high? It's like you're talking to them in real life. You're actually talking to them in real life. Yes, you're not seeing them. Honestly, to me, using a webcam to when I talk with someone, it's kind of useless because when I speak to someone, I usually play a game, or they are playing one, or we are both playing games, or I'm working on my project or something. I'm not gonna stay with my eyes in the screen and uh, look at that person's image, right, that their camera shows me. It's not gonna change me in any way. It's not gonna be more precious to me if I can see the other person's life, right, or if I can see their face, right, because the energy that comes through the webcam, but not only through that, through, let's say, a conversation, well, that's enough information for me to grab a few glimpses into their life. Obviously, it's all unconsciously done. There are certain forces that handle that for me. So people may talk, what is the example? See, anything that you can think of, a fantasy, be it sexual or not. A fantasy that you want to do is something that you dream of, and it's not necessarily an obsession. An obsession is everything that you think your life will be useless without, or you feel as if you're gonna die without it, right? It's also based on what esteem you have and how you perceive yourself, how well you perceive yourself. But yourself is again another illusion, another piece of meaning. That's why I always tell people, why not believe in your talent instead? Because your talent is basically the more important part, right? Your talent doesn't dull down when people pull you down. Most likely you're not gonna make use as well when you're feeling down, but it's still there. It's gonna be your skill, irrespective of what it is, right? Be that you're a programmer or you're a designer of whatever, like, it's gonna stay there. If you don't make a use of it, it may dull down a bit, but you're still gonna recover when you start doing it, right? It's just like video games. You don't play it for a while, you still need to practice it a bit, and then you're good to go. Because the information and the experience and the wisdom accumulated for that particular field, they're still there in your brain, right? That's why I always tell people, trust your talent, right? Because people don't necessarily come for you or your vibe, they come for your talent, right? Because they want emotions, and That's what people are buying, right? People are buying emotions, not products or services. They come to you because they may understand, or you actually may be a genius, or you may be someone who can help them. So they are coming to you for that. They're not necessarily coming for you. They may not necessarily even care about you. They just want your help, right? They may help you back, or they may pay you, whatever it may be, right? Just like when you don't know something, you go, you go and look for some guides, right? And well, you get the responses. So every piece of meaning is more or less an illusion, right? And don't focus yourself too much on illusions. You're just giving your mind more ways of screwing you around. And the mind's superpower is that everything it shows you in such a way. If you're ignorant enough, you will believe it is a reality. You will believe it is so overwhelmingly real. That's why a lot of people, they get attached to their dreams as if they are supposed to be some kind of supernatural thing. Only you can find out if it was a premonition, or something divine, or it was just a cleansing of the mind. So this is what I'd like to speak about illusions. Even fantasies, even fetishes, they are nothing but an illusion ultimately, because they're not real in the first place. You're giving them importance, and you're fussing towards those. You're reacting towards those as if your life would be insignificant without, right? But when you have a certain sense of boundary and rootedness into this world, you'll know that vocabularies and the such, they're just kind of irrelevant ultimately. Are they bad? No. Are they good? No. That's another trap of awareness. When you're stuck in duality, everything is either good or bad, right? Good or bad only creates separation. It is needed only for some people, not you. Okay? People who are warmongers, for example, people who want separation and they profit out of separation, well, they're the ones who need duality, not you. You can be wiser than them. If, just like death, right? Christianity always portrayed death as, a bad thing. But you're being kept in misery. When your esteem goes low enough, you will fantasize about death, right? You'll imagine all sorts of scenarios. You'll have a car crash, a plane crash, something may happen, this may happen, you can get bullied, you can get killed and such. It's like you're fantasizing about death anyways. But, for example, Christianity teaches you that death is bad, and after death you're gonna be ruthlessly judged by the, all-loving creator, which is the god of love, but you have to live your life fearing them because, love and fear, apparently they can coexist. It is an interesting philosophy, I can say, much like most other philosophy is wrong, but it is worthy of an award, and more like a psychiatry award. But oh well, moving further, I can say, see, that is the point that I wanted to speak about illusions and the such. All pieces of meaning, more or less, are illusions, because the more you become in tune with nature, the more you become in tune with life. The simple point is this: you become in tune with life, you simply have little time for the mumbo jumbo in your mind. A lot of people are struggling nowadays just because of that, right? They end up thinking that they're not good enough, that they don't feel good enough in their skin and the such, and their mental nonsense is always aggravating things, right? Learn to detach yourself from that. Don't force the mind shut, because you're not gonna shut it down, right? So this being said, hopefully this video was actually useful. I felt like it was a complete mess in a way, because I was like all over, but oh well, I presented some points, and I don't mind some of the videos being like, rants and presenting certain ideas. And well, feel free to share your points in the comment section below. Feel free to view any other piece of content that there is on this channel. Take care, enjoy life, and this being said, Ferinjan Board signing out.